As of recording this, a new trailer for the casting of Frank Stone just dropped, and after watching it, I think I can firmly say that I have already figured out the story of this game. Sit back, grab some snacks, and let me tell you all about it. You may know Supermassive as the creator of all these previous games, and they tend to focus on narratively driven horror/thriller tales where the player has a major role in how the story plays out. Armed with what I know of the Dead by Daylight universe, Supermassive's previous works, and the information from the teasers and trailers we have received thus far, I have used my super giga-brain to crack the code on what will happen in this game before it even comes out. Either that or a lifetime of obsessing over horror movies and a love of wordplay has finally paid off. Either way, let's start with the basics. The game is set in the 1980s, with a group of friends setting out into the small town of Cedar Hills, Oregon to make their own movie. Drawing inspiration from the local legends of a serial killer, they plan on making a horror film, even going as far as to try to film it on location at the alleged hideout of said killer. Supermassive have promised an engaging story with twists, turns, and cosmic powers beyond our understanding. As someone who has casually played Dead by Daylight, I couldn't be more excited to see where this goes. That excited anticipation may have been my downfall, however, because I really think that I've got the story all figured out. Let's tune in. The game itself is set in the Dead by Daylight universe, so some people are thinking we're going to see the origins of the entity and the trials. I think that this is half correct. While I do think that we will see the origins of the trials, or at least a kind of refining of what the trials will eventually become, I do not think that we will see how the entity came to be. For those not in the know, the entity is the one responsible for pulling the survivors and killers into the fog and putting them through the trials that we play through in the main Dead by Daylight gameplay. It is a being that lives and thrives off the terror that the survivors feel while being hunted. So it is constantly looking for new survivors to pull in to feed off of, and new killers to keep the kills fresh and exciting. Pretty sadistic. That said, I do not think that behavior would let Supermassive explain the origin of the entity, because it would take away a lot of the mystique about it. We don't know much about the entity, and that is by design. I don't think that behavior would rip back the veil on the entity in a spin-off game. I do, however, think that they could show how the entity set up the first trials and began to consistently grow its power. Enter Frank Stone. The killer clearly has some industrial influences, and is seen tinkering with machinery and making his own armored mask. I would not be surprised at all to find out that the generators, closed doors, and even meat hooks that we find in the trials were all based off of designs originally created by Frank Stone. Under what I am guessing is influence from the entity, Frank may have been inspired to make these designs. I think we will find that Frank put his victims through similar trials to what we eventually play in Dead by Daylight, thereby kind of inspiring the entity to take the concept and make it its own, using it as a consistent method of growing its own power and feeding. So that's it then? He makes the hooks and generators that the entity takes inspiration from, and we're supposed to be impressed? Not a very bold prediction. Ah, dear viewer, that is where you are wrong. I set the scene with all of this to get to my main point, my boldest claim yet. I do not think that Frank Stone exists. At least not in the way that we're led to believe he does. Let me explain. The description of the game states that Stone's bloody legacy cuts deep, leaving scars across families, generations, and the very fabric of reality itself. It also teases the game as a mystery of cosmic proportions, given Dead by Daylight's tendency to play fast and loose with what reality even is. This isn't too surprising. I mean, this is a game where you can play as a Resident Evil character, Chucky, or even Nicolas fucking Cage. Anything is possible with the twist they're referring to, but I think that this is more of a hint to some timey-wimey fuckery than anything else. Why do I think this? Well, the name of the game, actually. What's in a name? A whole hell of a lot, it turns out. The name of the game being The Casting of Frank Stone has a double meaning, I believe. The first and probably more obvious meaning is the relation to the phrase casting the first stone, implying with it the meaning of being the first to do something. This is why I do not think that we will see the origins of the entity itself, but I do think that we will see where the entity attaches itself to the idea of running the trials to grow stronger. How Frank Stone treats his victims will be the casting of the first stone in the process that will create the trials as we know it today. That's nice, but like I said, there's another meaning to the title, and this meaning is much more interesting to me. Ready for the big reveal? The second interpretation of the title has the implication of casting someone in a role. In film or theater, actors and actresses are cast into roles. To me, the fact that this game is about a group of filmmakers seeking out information about a real-life serial killer as inspiration for this movie, only to find more than they bargained for, is the perfect setup for a twist that can play out well in a choice-based narrative like the ones that Supermassive excels at. The way I see this playing out is as follows. The crew arrives in the town, having heard about Frank Stone and thinking that adapting his story is a perfect way to make a hit cult horror film. They research around town, seeing the trauma caused by the man to the locals, before finally being led to the location where he did his killings. Inside, they find the remnants of Stone's experiments that he set up in an attempt to appease the entity that had contacted him. They find that his victims were put through torture in the form of games that they were forced to try and survive. Games where they had to power exit gates with generators while Stone himself tried to hunt them down and string them up on meat hooks. I think that the influence from the entity will make time flow strangely in this town, leading to the film crew finding themselves eventually hunted by Stone. Throughout the game, your choices will lead to which characters live and which characters die, as they did in Until Dawn and The Quarry. I think that we will get different endings and learn more information based on which choices we make, but I also think that one thing will remain constant, no matter what we choose. In the end, we will find out that Frank Stone never existed. At least not in the way we have been led to believe. Frank Stone will be a mantle taken up by whatever character you had survive at the end of your gameplay. And through the entity's reality-altering powers, time will be stuck in a kind of causality loop. This loop is a result of the entity's first attempt at setting up the trials to find a consistent food source for itself, something that we see it eventually perfect when it makes its own pocket dimension in the fog. This loop occurs endlessly, meaning that all our choices we make and the endings we receive are in fact canon. All of them. There is no Frank Stone, but in a way, I'm willing to bet that there will be a way for any of the major characters in the game to put on the helmet and take up the name. At the end of the day, the film crew came to this town to learn more about a local legend, unaware that by setting out to make this movie, they were casting themselves as the killer. Or maybe I'm completely wrong, who knows. If I am, after the game comes out, feel free to come back and tell me how much I missed the mark by. But I really have a good feeling that this will be an approximation of the story we get. What do you think? Have any other ideas of what might happen? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with me today. I'm in the process of finishing up the editing in my next long-form video, and I just wanted to take some time to put this out in the meantime after watching the trailer. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you want to see more weird videos, mostly about horror and horror-adjacent games, please feel free to subscribe. But like I said, I'm gonna get back to editing that long-form video. Thank you, friends. I'll see you next time.